So verse 14, third chapter, Krishna is saying, all living bodies subsist on food grains, which are produced from rains. Rains are produced by performance of yajna, and yajna is born of prescribed duties. Okay. So that's the 14th verse. Okay, so let's look at this 14th verse and let's look at the cycle that Krishna is speaking about, right? So as Krishna is saying, all embodied living beings subsist on food grains. Food grains are produced by rains, and rains depend on yajna, sacrifice, right? And sacrifices are when we do our prescribed duties. And where are prescribed duties coming from? Vedas. So this is going to be these other parts, the Veda, and this is going to come later on in the 15th and 16th verse. But this is the cycle that's going to be discussed in these 14, 15, and 16 that Krishna is going to bring out, right? So it's a divine cycle, right? So Krishna is showing a perfect cycle in this verse that that duty comes to a duty, sacrifice, rain, food, and that's how life is done. When duty is done as a service, life flows smoothly. But when it's done for ego, the cycle breaks. That's what Krishna is highlighting here, right? So he's presenting a cycle of harmony. It's not independent of human effort or not independent human effort. So Bhutani, the living beings, they depend on food. Food depends on rain. Rain depends on sacrifice. Right? So yajna, what does yajna mean? As we just talked about, yajna means Vishnu, Krishna. Right? It doesn't necessarily mean fire sacrifice, as we have discussed in the past. Any activity done for the pleasure of Krishna is yajna. Right? That liberates us. Otherwise, it binds us. That's what we read in the 9th verse. Yagyarthat karmano anyatra lokoyam karma bandhana. So whatever we do, if it's for Krishna, it becomes a yajna. Earning, cooking, raising children, teaching, farming, whatever it may be. Okay? So sometimes we see that science can explain us how rain forms. But Krishna is giving us a much deeper understanding as to why does rain have to come? Why does the nature have to cooperate with us? Right? So why does nature have to cooperate with us? Right? So demigods, they maintain this nature on behalf of Krishna. So when human beings perform yajna, the cosmic administration is satisfied. When yajna is neglected, imbalance occurs. So nature is not mechanical, it's responsive. So the current mentality of the people in this current generation, current scenario is we produce, we control, we own. Krishna is giving us a different picture. He's saying we serve, we receive, and we offer back. Right? Everything moves smoothly when duties are done, offerings are made, and Krishna is kept at the center. Otherwise, chaos happens. Okay. Now, somebody asked me many years ago about this verse that, if yajna is producing rain, but then we see that the Western countries, they get a lot of rain. What kind of yajna are they doing? Right? So Bhagavad Gita is providing a very universal principle. Yajna, some people can think of it as specific level as a fire sacrifice. But in a broader sense, yajna is a spirit of sacrifice, of cosmic cooperation. So we are living in an interdependent cosmos, not an isolated one. So a higher supervision is required for supplying of our needs to come properly. So yajna is a principle by which we cooperate with the cosmic government. Practices can change according to time, place, and circumstance. Okay. So in a broader sense, sacrifice means anything that I can use for my pleasure, I use it for a higher purpose. And this mood is everywhere. Even Christians do some sort of sacrifice. For example, charity. A lot of Christians do a lot of charity. So principle of sacrifice is universal, and it can be found in different expressions. Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is pointing out that there is an interconnectedness in this cosmos. For example, getting water is not in our control alone. We can make efforts. There's a lot of effort around cloud seeding and, but that cannot define where the clouds will rain. So Prabhupada explains this as a concept of yajna as taxes. When I take something, I have to give something in return. So results of non-performance of yajna is not necessarily stoppage of rain, but it can also be erratic supply. Right? We saw that in Bhagavatam, right? When the Brijvasis, they stopped yajna for Indra, rains were excessive. They were excessive rains. Point is that when there is no yajna, there will be disruption of supply. And we see there's a lot of ecological devastation happening and so forth. So you have to understand yajna in a much broader perspective of understanding that interconnectedness with this cosmos. Not just about, just one understanding or one concept, something like that. So hope that is clear about yajna. And Prabhupada is telling us, food offered to Vishnu and then taken by us makes us sufficiently resistant to material affection. And one who is accustomed to this practice is called a devotee of the Lord. So anybody who is eating prasadam is a devotee of the Lord. Prabhupada is mentioning. 15. Regulated activity. So here till 16, Krishna is talking about, what was that? We had shown that in the slide. What was that? Here. So 16, he's teaching about karma kanda. Karma kanda. So if you remember the yoga ladder, karmis were the lowest, where there is no concept of, a higher power or any of that sort. They're basically animalistic. Karma kanda is they're still material minded, but they do it in a regulated way, according to scriptures. So that's what Krishna is bringing it out here. Okay, fine. You cannot do karma yoga, nishkam, sakam, still hard for you. At least do karma kand. So Krishna is just showing karma kand means, yeah, you can do all the regulative principles, but at least have some understanding that there is somebody who's running this cosmos. It's not all by itself. So just have some sense of reciprocation. That's what Krishna is highlighting in this up to the verse 16, 10 to 16. That's what he is doing. Okay. So let's see, where was that 10 to 16? Right. So yes. This is about, if they cannot perform karma yoga, Krishna is starting from the lowest rung of the ladder, and then they can gradually move from karma kand to karma yoga and then eventually to bhakti. That's the goal here. Okay, so let's see 15th. Regulated activities are prescribed in the Vedas, and the Vedas are directly manifested from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Consequently, the all-pervading transcendence is eternally situated in acts of sacrifice. So this is 15th. So work is not the problem. Disconnected work is the problem. When work is linked to Krishna, it purifies, it liberates, it does not bind us. Right? So in the last verse, we saw the external cycle: karma, yajna, rain, food, and life. In here, Krishna is revealing the source behind that cycle. So where does this whole system come from? So Krishna is saying it comes from the Vedas. So Krishna is highlighting here that regulated activities are prescribed in the Vedas. So there's prescribed duty which is given in the Vedas. Where do Vedas come from? So let's look at the verse. Karma brahmodbhavam vidhi. So here the word Brahm is referring to Vedas. So karma brahmodbhavam vidhi is coming from there. And the Vedas, Brahmakshara samudbhavam. So Akshara here is a supreme Brahman, personality of Godhead. So that's where he's coming from. So that's how the hierarchy Krishna is explaining in here. Right? Here the word Brahm means, it does not mean that we talk about the Brahm Jyoti. It's not there. It means Brahm means Vedic knowledge here. Right? And we know Vedic knowledge emanates from Krishna. So therefore Krishna is the ultimate source of all the regulation, duty, and yajna. Right? And this supports Krishna's statement, which comes later on in the 15th chapter, Vedesha sarver aham eva vedya, in the 15th verse of the 15th chapter. Right? So that's the way to understand this, right? And let's do the 16th and then we can get a clear 16. This is the yes, again, Krishna is bringing out the concept of sin here. My dear Arjun, one who does not follow in human life the cycle of sacrifice thus established by the Vedas certainly leads a life full of sin. Living only for the satisfaction of the senses, such a person lives in vain. Right? So, 14th was uh, external cycle, 15th is the source behind the cycle, and 16th is what happens if you break the cycle. Right? So, a self centered life creates frustration, even if in some sort people become successful, but it doesn't bring happiness. So life should not revolve around my comfort, my desires. If all that is, then the peace disappears. And this verse explains why the modern society is anxious, right? So the word that Krishna is using is sin. For sin, where is that word? Agha ayu. It's agha is the life full of sins. Agha is sin. So when somebody talks of a crime is something that is legally wrong. A sin is something that is morally wrong. If societies are based on scriptures, the sin and crime are the same. But in society not based on scriptures, sin might not be a crime, might not be crime. Right? So you have to keep that in mind. The sin here is about talking about moral standards. Okay? Uh, and how does mastery lead to Krishna consciousness? When you become as Krishna is saying, following the cycle of sacrifice established by Vedas. So if I do that, what happens? So when we continue to do that, eventually we'll come to a point to understand who is the ultimate Yagyapati. Like, where is this Yagya going? Who's the originator, and where is eventually all this going to? Right? So normally Yagyas are performed for material gains. Right? So, but then if you notice, even when people do material gain yagyas and all that, there is always prayers to Vishnu. There are Vishnu mantras, and that leads to purification. So that's how it will eventually lead to bhakti. Here, Prabhupada is talking about the Mammonist philosophy of work very hard and enjoy sense gratification is condemned herein by the Lord. So the Mammonist philosophy Prabhupada is talking about is the Charvaka philosophy. Prabhupada talks about it at many places. So Charvaka.
તારે લેવું છે પ્રશાંત?
So it's Charvaka philosophy. The Charvaka was a Muni, he was a sage. And his philosophy was Rinam Kritva Ghritam Pivet Yavan Jivet Sukham Jivet. So what he said was, even if you have to take loan, rin. If you have to take a loan, right? Live your life as much as comfort you can live with, even if you have to take loans. So that's the philosophy that Prabhupada is highlighting here. It's a Mammonist philosophy. It's called a Mammonist philosophy. Charvaka. Charvaka Muni was the person who propagated this philosophy. And eventually, when we continue to serve Krishna in this the way that Krishna is explaining, by the cycle of sacrifice, eventually we will come to the point of bhakti. That's the eventual goal here. But it doesn't mean that once we come to the level of bhakti, we give all this up. No, we continue to do that. Krishna talks about this in the 18th chapter. Yagya dana tapha karma na tyajam karyam evayat. That even the self-realized souls don't give up this work. They have to continue doing this acts of sacrifices. Okay. And Prabhupada is saying,
So I have a question, Prabhu. So if as a devotee, do you think this is a mammonism if you leave your wealth to children? instead of giving it to ISKCON or charity?
Is it Mammonist philosophy?
No, it's not a philosophy. Like as a devotee, if you inherit your wealth to your child instead of getting detached, you know?
No, but you when you leave it for your child, it's your responsibility also, right? There is a verse in the Bhagavatam which says um, that you should not become a father, a mother, a king, or a teacher unless you don't give them the facilities by which they can go back home, back to Godhead. So let's presume we leave our children, we take away all the money, and then they don't have a lot of resources. Then we are not giving them the proper, like obviously we don't want them to be spendthrifts and just take our money and just go and play gamble or something. But as long as they are on the right path, there is no problem in doing that, right? And all devotees do that, right? If it is done in the right consciousness and the proportion, right? So mammonism, what does the word mammonism would mean if I have to break that down for you? Excessive attachment to wealth, seeing money as a source of identity, happiness, security, all that. Hoarding for sense gratification or prestige, and forgetting Krishna as the real maintainer, right? So Prabhupada is not criticizing, or Krishna is not criticizing responsibility. He is criticizing attachment to it, right? So in a grihastha ashram, in a family life, providing for one's dependents is dharma. It's not materialism, right? Krishna says this in the 35th chapter of this verse, that it's better to do your own prescribed duty than rather imitating somebody else. I say, oh no, I'm a self-realized soul, I won't leave anything to my children. No, that's not the way. For a parent, feeding the children, educating them, providing reasonable financial security, none of that is mammonism, right? As a matter of fact, if on the name of mammonism, or not mammonism, if in the name of renunciation we start neglecting our dependents, that's not appropriate. Krishna does not appreciate that. But then it becomes a problem, as I mentioned earlier, if wealth becomes it becomes central to identity, right? And if children have been raised to be materially ambitious, but spiritually they are empty, right? So then it's not a good thing. Then the line's been crossed, right? So yeah, so it's not wrong to take care of children, and we do it as an instrument. That I'm an instrument in taking care of my children. Krishna sent me a living entity to take care of, and I'm just arranging for that purpose. Then it's not mammonism.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah. A devotee does not think that it is my money. He thinks this is Krishna's money entrusted to me, right? And we do it in a way that our children, they grow up in a Krishna conscious environment, and hopefully, Krishna mercy, they become Krishna conscious when they are grown up. And when we leave them some money or something, they use that also for Krishna conscious activities. Then there is no problem. It's not mammonism, right? Okay, so that was that. Okay, so we did 16. So 16 is the end of this whole cycle, right? So as we talked about here. So, right, so how all of us are dependent on yajna, and the yajna is coming from the prescribed duties. Prescribed duties are given in the Vedas, and Vedas come from the Supreme Lord, right? And Sankirtan yajna is the topmost yajna. Krishna actually says this in the 10th chapter. In the 10th chapter, 25th verse of Bhagavad Gita 10:25, Krishna says, Yajna nam japa yajyo asmi. So Krishna is telling he's telling how he's the best of everything. In animals, he's lion. In human beings, he's, or no, in the Pandavas, he's Arjun. And in the human beings, he's the king. And then he says, in all the yajnas, sacrifice, yajna nam japa yagyosmi, japa, chanting. So he says that. So he himself confirms that Sankirtan Yagya is the topmost Yagya. So this section is done, and then from the 17th, what was that? The 17 to 23, 17 to 24. Here, now what Krishna is going to start stressing on is that how can Arjun live his life as an example, practicing karma yoga to set an example. Because Arjun, right now, he's in a mindset where he's saying that I don't care, I'm going to leave everything and go and live in the forest. And Krishna, briefly tells him in the second chapter that if you do this, people will laugh at you. And now Krishna is expanding upon that you should set an example, and he'll give multiple reasons why you should set an example. Actually, as a matter of fact, 22, 23, and 24th verse, Krishna will highlight himself as an example. That why I don't become, just do whatever comes to my mind, because I am also setting an example. So this concept will come here as an example. So understand, when you look at this chapter in the bigger picture, you will still see some remnants of Krishna answering Arjun's questions that were coming from the first chapter. So just keep that in mind also. Okay, so we are in 17 now. We'll come to 17. But for one who takes pleasure in the self, whose human life is one of self-realization, and who is satisfied in the self only, fully satiated, for him there is no duty. So for him there is no duty. This is, as I was saying, this is about example, right? So creating and being exemplary, right? So what Krishna is saying here, who takes pleasure in self, whose human life is one of self-realization, and who's satisfied in the self, for him there is no duty. Okay, now this is something to keep in mind. This verse does not mean that advanced devotees stop working. They don't think that I'm self-realized, so I don't need to serve. Or they don't think that bhakti means inactivity. So who is this verse talking about? So there are three kinds of people that are being referred to here. Atma Ratir, Atma Triptas, right? And Atmani Evacha Santushtas. There are three kinds of people. So Atma Ratir, who take pleasure in the self. Atma Triptas, they are self-illuminated, self-realized souls. Atmani Evacha Santushta, they are perfectly satiated. So these are the three kinds of people that are being talked about here. Such a person has no personal agenda, no material motivation, and he is already completely connected to Krishna. For such a soul, duty is not required for purification. So why Krishna says this here? From the ninth verse that we have been reading, Krishna has been strongly emphasizing on duty, yagya, responsibility, social harmony. So now Arjun could think, why should a self-realized person act at all? So Krishna is saying, yes, a fully self-realized person has no personal obligation. But, and that will come in the next verse, Krishna says such souls still act for others. Right? This will lead to the later section where Krishna will say that, okay, he'll refer to Janaka and himself also. So he's just building it up to that, right? So in bhakti, even the self-satisfied soul acts out of compassion, acts to set an example, and acts to please Krishna. And Prabhupada was a living example for all of us. So once somebody asked Prabhupada, what is your daily schedule? So Prabhupada said, we wake up at 3:30, then we do Mangal Aarti, morning program, we go out for book distribution, there is temple maintenance and preaching and so forth. Then evening program, and then we rest at 9:30. And then Prabhupada also said, we don't eat meat, we don't know gambling, etc. So then the person asked, so Prabhupada, when do you recreate? Like recreation, what is recreation for you? Prabhupada looked at him and said, our whole life is recreation. Recreation means going from one meaningful activity to another. So it doesn't mean watching TV, right? So that's how Prabhupada explained him that, it's not, we don't give up any activity. This is all recreation for us. This is all enjoyment for us, right? So So that's something to keep in mind, right? So
Prabhuji, in this verse, is Prabhupada ji talking about Uttamadhikari, like advanced devotees?
yes, he's talking about advanced devotees. However, you have to keep in mind, Krishna has not yet introduced himself as a supreme personality of Godhead yet. Okay. So yes, so he is he's a self-realized soul that he's talking about. But yeah, not. But Krishna is still talking about it from a more how to say it, karma yoga perspective. He has not yet graduated to bhakti yoga for Arjun. It's still karma yoga. Do your duty. By doing your duty, sacrifice, you will eventually come to a place where you'll start taking pleasure in yourself. You'll be self-realized. You'll be fully satiated, and then you might not need to do duties, right? But as a devotee, we all do duties. Sometimes we are not fully satisfied. Satisfied in the sense that some people get positions, a temple president or some GBC. They are really, they're really working very hard, and sometimes life becomes very hard for them, to respond. So in a bhakti yoga perspective, that person is not even thinking about his own self, own pleasure. He's only thinking about Krishna's pleasure. So here the person is still, okay, self-realization. I am satisfied in my own self. So it's a, so yes, just keep that in bigger picture in mind. Did that make sense or did I confuse you further?
It makes sense, Prabhuji. Thank
Okay.
you, Prabhuji.
Yeah. So, and Prabhupada talks about this in the purport. So a person who is fully Krishna consciousness, and you'll have to notice, and I have mentioned this in the past, Prabhupada brings all the purports to Krishna consciousness. The purpose was because when Prabhupada was writing the Bhagavad Gita, he knew the effect of Kali Yuga is such people would not have time to read books. So he packed the entire message of Bhagavad Gita, being surrendering to Krishna, in every purport. So he brings it in every purport, right? So that's how Prabhupada is presenting it here. So he's saying, due to his being Krishna conscious, all impiety within is instantly cleansed, and an effect of many, many thousands of yajnas. So clearing of consciousness happens. So yeah. Okay. So here, so yes, so he said in the 17, this is 17th verse, right? Yeah, that even a self-realized soul has no duty, right? Because Krishna now removes two possible misunderstandings from Arjun's mind. I'm acting to gain something. That's what Arjun was thinking. What am I going to do by winning the war if I don't have it to show it to anybody? So he's still thinking about me, right? And so that's something that you're not acting to gain something. And so that's something that, so a liberated soul does not act for personal gains. He does not avoid action out of fear or laziness, and he's fully satisfied in Krishna. So now in the 18th verse, what Krishna is going to do, Krishna is saying, a self-realized man has no purpose to fulfill the discharge of his prescribed duties, nor has he any reason not to perform such work, nor has he any need to depend on other living entities. So their verses are, Naiva tasya kritenartho. He gains nothing external by performing duties, right? Na kriteneha kaschana. What that means is he loses nothing by not acting. No fear of degradation, right? And he depends on no one for fulfillment. So then the question could come, why does such a person act at all? Right? So he's not acting for himself, but for Krishna's pleasure, for guiding society, for uplifting others, right? So this is, as I was saying, this is preparing the ground for that concept of being an example for Arjun. Krishna is doing that. So yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, bhakti is not about being inactive. Self-satisfaction doesn't mean it cancels out compassion for others. A pure devotee needs to work, but he chooses to work for Krishna's mission. This is a voluntary service, not an obligation. So, and sometimes, there was once somebody asked Prabhupada that, Prabhupada he was just challenging Prabhupada, saying that you on one hand, you're a sannyasi, you act as if you're a sannyasi and you're detached from everything, but then you go around building these huge temples. And Prabhupada said, I can preach under a tree, I can live under a tree, I have no problem. But will you come to listen to me under that tree? No. So Prabhupada's mindset in creating temples, creating an organization, International Society for Krishna Consciousness, was not to gain, recognition for himself. No. It was all as a duty. It was all as a duty towards Krishna, as a service to Krishna. So, yeah, that's something to keep in mind. So that's 18. 19. Therefore, without being attached to the fruits of activities, one should act as a matter of duty, for by working without attachment, once one attains the supreme. So here, one attains the supreme. So here now, Krishna is bringing the word tasmad. Tasmad means therefore. So tasmad means therefore. That means Krishna was building a scenario earlier. So scenario was that an Atmarati doesn't have any work to perform, has no obligations to the material world. He should continue to act, right? So this is kind of a practical conclusion for the verses that we have read till now, that he's explained the yagya cycle. He's explained about the exception of the self-realized soul. Now he tells Arjun, right? He's saying that, where is it? Therefore, without being attached to the fruits of activities, one should act as a matter of duty. For by working without attachment, one attains the supreme. Right? So he's saying most of us are not at that rare stage yet. So this is what you should do. That's what he's saying here. Right? Therefore, I have told you all these things, but you are not at that stage, Arjun. So you have to do your duty. But the duty has to be without being attached, asakta. Arjun was worried, oh, if I lose, what's going to happen? If I'm going to win, what's going to happen? So no obsession with success or failure, right? And it should be duty-bound action. Work must be done, right? Service for service sake, not to gain recognition, not to gain position, money, whatever. So service for the sake of service. And most importantly, the word is what did I do? Satatam. This is the word I was looking for. Satatam means constantly. Something to keep in mind. It's not occasional enthusiasm. It's steady, dependable service. It's a sadhana, not a sentiment. Right? So this verse, it's showing us that how you can reach the supreme. So here it's, in one sense, you can say the bhakti principle is hidden inside karma yoga. Action without attachment purifies the heart. Purified heart develops real bhakti. Bhakti brings one to Krishna. So this is not ordinary karma. It's karma that will eventually take us to bhakti. So, so we all have to work. Just keep that in mind. It's a so we all have to do work. Sometimes we become very comfortable in our bhakti process, right? So, but is the goal to be comfortable in spiritual life? It's a question for all of you. Tell me, is the goal to be comfortable in spiritual life? What do you all think? Anybody wants to give it a try?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhu.
Prabhuji, goal is in the spiritual life is to always elevate to the next level for me, which cannot be achieved in comfort.
That's a good point. Yeah. Moving forward, that's a good point. Yes. So you're saying that comfort is not the goal in spiritual life. Krishna doesn't want us to be comfortable in spiritual life, right? That's what you're saying, Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhuji. Even if we take the example of Prabhupada could have lived in Vrindavan.
Yeah.
Coming here. So
yes, see, yes, that's a very good point, and we all should come out of that comfort zone. Be we all are Prabhupada's foot soldiers. Keep that in mind. Prabhupada has built an army. He didn't build an armchair movement. Ours is a international society for Krishna consciousness. It's a movement. Movement has the word move in it. We have to move, right? So, and then movement can be on different levels. You know? For example, I ask you all to memorize verses. You all should memorize verses. Because when you speak in front of others, you'll speak about Shastra. You'll give Krishna conscious answers on the spot. You'll be carrying the Bhagavad Gita within you. So comfort creates maintenance. You'll be able to maintain yourself. Okay, I'm doing good, 16 rounds, offer my food. Okay, that's fine. But you won't grow in comfort zone. So only when we get challenged does that increase our dependence on Krishna. Right. So Queen Kunti, she says, right, that that we went through so much, right? And she wants it again. She's asked again for all that, whatever she and her children went to. That creates dependence on Krishna. So Prabhupada didn't want us to remain private devotees. Oh, I'm happy. I read, I do my Bhakti Shastri. I do my chanting. I go to temple once a week. All okay. No, Prabhupada didn't want us to do that. Krishna doesn't want us to do that. Right? And so when Krishna wants us to grow, what does Krishna do? Is that Krishna will put obstacles, struggles, disappointments. So coming to spiritual life is not the end of the story. Krishna is going to move you here and there. And what will he do? He'll bring more obstacles, more struggles, more problems, more issues. It's not because Krishna wants you to be uncomfortable, but Krishna wants you to be comfortable in Krishna consciousness, not in a spiritual life. Just a spiritual life is very standard. He wants you to be comfortable in Krishna consciousness. And that's not cheap. Right? So this is an opportunity we all have. Bhagavad Gita is a science of struggle. Krishna is providing wisdom for all of us. People ask, why would Krishna want us to have a painful life? Krishna wants us, but Krishna does not want us to have a painful life, but he wants us to be comfortable in Krishna consciousness, which means 100% dependence on Krishna. That's what Krishna wants. And that's what is the goal. Yes, eventually. Which verse are we doing? 19. This was 19. Okay. So doing it as a duty without attachment. Right? So that's what Prabhupada is highlighting here. And Prabhupada is highlighting here that when we do work in that way, without attachment, then there is no reaction of good or evil work. We don't get any karma. Okay. Then comes 20. And now here, the concept of example, which I was mentioning, Krishna is going to start talking about that. Right? So he's giving a historical proof now. Kings such as Janak attained perfection solely by performance of prescribed duties. Therefore, just for the sake of educating the people in general, you should perform your work. It's giving a clear command to Arjun. This path works, great souls followed it. Janak was a very powerful king. He was fully self-realized, deeply renounced internally. Yet, he ruled as a king. He performed his duties. He remained detached. Right? So perfection comes through action, not by abandoning it. That's what Krishna is highlighting here. He's told us in the past, in the second chapter, Karmanyevadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. Do your duty. Now he is giving us reasons why you should do your duty. Because in one sense, we all are leaders. Leaders means somebody, when you have somebody to look up to you. If you are a family person, probably your kids look up to you. If you go to work, you're a manager, probably your direct reportees, they look up to you. So there is always somebody looking up to us. So there's a word here, Lokasangram, the people in general. Krishna is saying that educating the people in general. So Lok Sangra. So you have to maintaining, guiding, and uplifting the society. That's the heart of the verse. So Krishna tells Arjun, even if you don't need purification, let's presume for a minute, others are watching you. Your actions will shape the society. Leaders do not have the luxury of private spirituality. And you all are leaders, right? This verse applies strongly to all of us, Bhakti Shastri students, teachers, parents, preachers, book distributors. You know, if the junior devotees see a senior devotee behaving in a way, they might get confused, right? Their standards might weaken. The mission might slow down. Therefore, we practice bhakti not just for ourselves, but to give courage and clarity to others also. So, um, yeah, so that's what Krishna is highlighting in these verses. This, so Prabhupada is highlighting in the purport that real renunciation is internal, right? Um, wants to teach public how to live and how to act. So that's what Prabhupada is highlighting here, right? So now just looking at how the verses have been coming. 17, 18, we read that rare souls have no personal duty. In 19, we read that most should act, many of like all of them should act without attachment. And in this verse, Krishna is saying leaders must act for lok sangraha. So perfection and responsibility, they both go together. A devotee must be liberated internally, but externally he works harder than anyone for Krishna and for the world. Okay. Janaka is one of the 12 Mahajans. It comes in the 6th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Swayambhur Narada Shambhu, Kumhara Kapilo Manu, Prahlado Janako Bhishmo, Balir Vyavasayik Vayam. Balir Vyavasayik, no, not Vyasakir Vayam, yeah. So there are 12 Mahajans that talked about, right? These are all Mahajans. So, yeah. So when we go out for book distribution, when I go out for book distribution, the most important quintessential principle that I go with in my mind is leave everyone with a good impression. Okay. One mistake on my part can leave a bad impression for Prabhupada's organization, for International Society for Krishna Consciousness. So in that sense, I'm also being very cautious. I'm working for Lok Sangraha because there are people who are looking up to me. When people come to the temple and they see that we are behaving very in a wrong way, like let's say people go down for prasadam and they see that all the congregation main devotees, they are in the front of the line and they just, oh no, we have to take prasadam first. They might feel that, oh no, these guys, they talk so much about philosophy and not being a body and all that stuff, but then when we come down here we see, so that's setting a wrong example, right? So we all are leaders, so we have to be very careful. It's a leadership. This section is a leadership sutra coming from Bhagavad Gita, right? Because people watch us with a telescope and a microscope. You know that? A telescope for what you do externally, and the microscopes for what you do in private, or what you think when nobody is seeing you, right? So telescope means what you present externally, they don't pay a lot of attention to it, because telescope is like, looking at far off things. So for them, it's a far off thing. It's a tiny thing. But with a microscope, they can actually blow up something small. So even if we do some tiny mistake, they will look up to us and say, oh, these guys do it this way, right? That's the whole reason why atheism is born in this world. It's not born out of disbelief of people. It's born when people get disgusted by other people who cheated them. Right? Similarly, when somebody leaves a company, when they quit a job, they're not quitting a job because the company was bad. It was just because the manager was not appropriately behaving. Right? So that's why this is a very important leadership sutra for us. How we work in this real, how do we work in this real world? Right. So Prabhupada towards the let me see. Well, actually, 21 is also similar. We can just read this also. Whatever action a great man performs, common men follow, and whatever standards he sets by exemplary act, all the world pursues. Right. So Prabhupada say, quoting Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, "Apni achari Prabhu jivera sikhaye." Lord Chaitanya said the teacher should behave properly before he begin teaching. Right. And Prabhupada towards the end says a very important statement. All such natural leaders have a great responsibility to the dependents. Therefore, they must be conversant with standard books of moral and spiritual code. Right. So, if you are not reading Prabhupada's book scrutinizingly, you all are still missing out something. It's very important that we read Prabhupada's books very, very scrutinizingly. Especially for Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada said, read the Bhagavad Gita threadbare. Threadbare means you should know everything about Bhagavad Gita. Where is what Krishna is speaking about, what in what section? What does it actually mean? Once again, going back, don't live in a comfort zone. Come out of that comfort zone. And you will see Krishna's mercy happening. When Prabhupada disciples, when they who's the author of chasing the rhinos? Who's the author? I guess just slipping out.
Sundar.
Sorry, I didn't get you.
Sundar.
Shyam Sundar Prabhu. Yes, Shyam Sundar Prabhu and Malti Mataji, when they went to, they were running a temple in California. Okay. And running a temple is not an easy thing. They were really short of money every time. And one day, Prabhupada told them that, you should go and test Krishna. Test Krishna means that you go so much out of your comfort zone and you see, will Krishna come and protect me? And that's what all the devotees were doing. They were just hanging by the thread there. They were starting temples with no source of funding. One day, Shyam Sundar Prabhu and Malti Mataji, they were just walking on a road trying to figure out how are they going to get money to pay that month's rent for the temple. And you'll not believe it, there were these $100 bills just flying out in the sky, in the sky there. They were just falling. It was early in the morning, 5 or 6 o'clock, and there were these $100 bills just flying all over the place. And they were just like surprised. They just looked around, hey, who did they belong to? And nobody was around there. They picked up that money, they paid the rent, and they had some savings. So what I'm highlighting is, when we come out of our comfort zone, Krishna also comes out and starts protecting us more deeply. Right? So Krishna says in the 9th chapter, he says, Sammoham sarva bhuteshu name dveshu asti na priya ye bhajanti tu mam bhaktya maite teshu chapiham. 29th verse. He's saying, I'm not envious to anybody. I'm not friends with anybody. Fine, I'm neutral. But if somebody loves me, wants to connect with me, I become a very dear friend to them. So come out of your comfort zone. Not always thinking that, I can't memorize verses because, I was not born in this culture. This is not my language. I am old, or I am whatever your excuse is. All this, or even just understanding the Bhagavad Gita, why is Krishna speaking about this? What is the message that I can take home and practice in my life when I read this section of Bhagavad Gita? So we all have to be in that mood the whole time, reading Prabhupada's books scrutinizingly. And Prabhupada is saying the Srimad Bhagavatam also affirms that one should follow in the footsteps of great devotees. And that is the way of progress on the path of spiritual realization. So follow a pure devotee. If you don't just hang around and say, I'm not sure whether I should, approach a guru or not. I'll think about it later. Oh, no. Krishna is clearly telling us this here. Prabhupada is telling us here. You have to follow in the footsteps of great devotees. And then our path on the progress on the path of spiritualization happens. Bhejiriya Munyo Thagre Bhagavantam Adokshajam. Prabhupada is quoting there's a verse in the first canto, second chapter. of Bhagavatam, 25th verse, I think. Vejire Muniyo Thagre Bhagwantam Adokshajam Sattvam Vishuddham Shemaya Kalpante Tanu Taniha. So, yeah, just keep that in mind. So don't wait. If you have an opportunity to approach a guru, please go ahead and do that. Because otherwise, our progress doesn't happen. Yes, Gandharvika.
But in ISKCON, they don't encourage getting a guru. Like, you do not like encourage people to get a guru. You know, they all voluntarily, like, people want to be initiated, then you get so welcomed. But no one come and ask you, are you looking for a guru? Are you looking to get initiated? You know? So I see what this means. It's so important, but I think it is also very voluntarily, voluntary decision to be initiated. And then just kind of organize, the institute is just kind of leaving that up to the devotee to come forward with their own decision. But just encouraging the environment for people to realize that they need a guru.
Well, I'll be frank with you. I mean, I encourage people to take a guru. I don't know, might be the environment you are in might not be that way, but I encourage everybody to take guru. But then I'm not encouraging. I do not encourage as if I'm creating a pressure or I'm forcing somebody to come take a guru.
Mm-hmm.
But I do tell people how having a guru has changed my life. How having a guru is extremely important. And it's just not me. Krishna is talking about in 434, Tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashtena sevaya. Learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master. Krishna is saying that. Bhagavatam is saying that. Tasmad gurum prapaddeta jigyasu shreya uttamam. Approach a guru. There is when you reach the 11th canto, the 9 sons of Rishabdev, the Yogendras, Nava Yogendras, King Nimi is asking them questions. And then one of the questions King Nimi asks him, how do I get freedom from the misery of this material world? And then the way, I think it's Prabhuddha, Abhīṣṭa-dohaṁ, one of the 9 Yogendras. He starts by saying that you have to take a guru. That's where the verse Tasmad Gurum Prapaddeta Jigyasu Shreyattamam comes from. 11th canto, 2nd chapter, 3rd chapter, one of those. So what I'm saying is, yes, we don't force people, right? But then I personally share my experiences and I request people to take a guru because I know, and I've heard from Prabhupada. Prabhupada was unequivocal. Guru is essential, disciplic succession is essential, right? So ISKCON discourages pressure. We don't say, take initiation immediately. Pick whoever is popular. Everyone must be initiated by, so-and-so date. No. Prabhupada was very strong against doing that. No sentimental initiations, no blind following, no cheap gurus, nothing of that sort. But ISKCON encourages a siksha before diksha. When you have the proper siksha, you will automatically go to diksha. Right? Hearing, observation of character, service connection, trust building over time. That is why Prabhupada created a system where we take shelter of a guru. So we don't just jump into initiation. The purpose of shelter of a guru is this. You hear from that guru specifically. You observe that guru's character. You build a connection with that guru. Okay? So yes, gurus are not assigned like managers. The disciple chooses, the guru accepts, the relationship is spiritual, it's not administrative in any way. So what ISKCON actually encourages, and I encourage, personally, I do that, study Srila Prabhupada's books deeply. Develop a faith in the Guru Tattva. Associate with advanced devotees, right? And you should take initiation when you have enough faith that this is the path I want to be in. So that's something that ISKCON does push for. Because in my personal experience, I'll tell you, you are growing, right? You grow in bhakti. You come to the temple, you see devotees, you learn things. Okay, why am I doing arti this way? What are these 7 items in the arti? And okay, what is Prabhupada telling me? I'm not a soul. Krishna is telling me that. You keep learning, learning, learning. But everyone in ISKCON comes to a point where they start thinking, I know everything now. I know what Prabhupada is telling every time. Again, bhakti, bhakti, bhakti. Then what is going to be the next thing? There is nothing like plateau in anybody's life. You reach a point, and if you plateau, the next thing is you're going to fall down. I have seen that in my life, my not personal life. I have seen devotees going through that phase. So it really hurts me when I see a person who was genuinely interested, whose faith was strong, but he didn't move on the path, didn't approach a guru, and then eventually that person just fell off. Prabhupada wants this. He says you can live life after life in the level of goodness, mode of goodness. And it becomes very attractive. Mode of goodness becomes very attractive. I have learned what Prabhupada taught me. I'm going to serve the whole world. I'm telling my family about it. I'm teaching to others. But then where am I progressing? So yes, we don't encourage guru hopping or fashionable gurus or any of that sort. Sorry.
Yeah, I personally have a friend who is very well versed in philosophy, but not interested in getting initiated. And I feel it's not my place to like solicitate, because no one did it to me. And I think it's very honoring for someone to come forward with their own decision. Once I did that, and I really felt like showering of the blessings of everyone, but no one just poked on me. So I thought that was like a little shell to be protective for themselves.
Well, actually, no. Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, if that person, but you have to understand, right, that friend of yours that you're referring to, because this thing is clear that without guru there is no progression. That is something that we all are clear about. Krishna talking about it, Prabhupada talking about it, Bhagavatam talking about it. If their friend is not interested in taking initiation and having a guru, so that means that person has not yet does not have faith on Prabhupada's teachings. That's something that that's the way I would see that person. So probably that person needs more time. But if the person keeps saying, no, I don't want a guru, that means that the person doesn't have faith in Prabhupada's teachings. Because Prabhupada is saying it, Krishna is saying it, right? So, but yeah, everybody has their own approach. I tell people, because I know I have seen examples in my personal life in people whom I know, friends, colleagues, that it's not a good thing to just hang out in this world by yourself. It's a dangerous place. So I motivate people. I encourage them, but it's a personal thing. So yeah. Okay. So we were at, yeah, so yes, that's okay. So then coming to 22. So we'll finish up to 24. 22, 23, and 24. Actually, now Krishna is going to start talking about his own example. Okay. O son of Pritha, there is no work prescribed from me within all the 3 planetary systems, nor am I in want of anything, nor have I a need to obtain anything, and yet I am engaged in prescribed duties. So let's read all 3 of them together and you'll get a feel of what Krishna is saying. For if I ever fail to engage in carefully performing prescribed duties, O Parth, certainly all men would follow my path. Okay. If I did not perform prescribed duties, all these worlds would be put to ruination. I would be the cause of creating unwanted population, and I would thereby destroy the peace of all living beings. So 3 verses, Krishna is giving himself as an example, starting by saying that there's no work prescribed for him, right? But still he is engaged in doing his duty, right? So there is no purification needed for Krishna. He does not need purification, yet he chooses to act. So the lesson he's giving is pure devotion does not mean inactivity, right? And then again in the next verse, Krishna is saying, again, I do my duties because all men would follow my path. Leaders must act because others follow. Krishna is saying, everyone imitates me. My behavior sets the norm. So if Krishna would withdraw, others would imitate that withdrawal. The society would collapse, right? So those who influence, they cannot opt out. right? That's the message Krishna is giving. And then in the last 34th verse is saying again, if I do not prescribe duties, all the worlds will be put to ruination. Again, now this is a concept of creating unwanted population. Arjun talked about it. This is called Sankarasya. Sankarasya, yes. Unwanted. Arjun talked about it, that if all the elderly die in this world, in the war, then who's going to guide the next generation? And there will be unwanted population. So he gives that example. He gives that reasoning. So Krishna is also hinting on that part. So without leadership by example, confusion arises. The moral order will collapse. Social chaos will follow. That's what Krishna is talking. Sankarsana is happening. So even spiritual neglect has social consequences. Spiritual leaders protect the world by remaining engaged in this world. So it's a message for all the devotees, right? So destroying the comfort zone mentality. I am advanced, I'll step back. I'll practice quietly in my own house. Oh, somebody else will do it. Why do I have to do it? It's not my business, right? So if Krishna is saying, if I, who needs nothing, continues to act, how can you justify withdrawal? That's what he's asking Arjun. Yeah. So this is Prabhupada's mission given in these 3 verses. So Prabhupada embodies these 3 verses. No personal need. He had no personal need. He was already in Vrindavan, right? So he was like in a retired state, right? But he was constantly engaged for others. He wrote books, built temples, global movement emerged out of it. So the highest example of leadership is selfless, constant engagement for the welfare of others. So bhakti means responsibility, doesn't mean to retreat. Right? So when in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Narad Muni, he reaches Dwarka and he sees that Krishna is there in 16,108 palaces. In each one of them, he's there with his wife, family members. Somewhere he's playing with his children. Somewhere he's sitting with his wife. Somewhere he is making some plans for a war or discussing with his ministers. So he was doing his duty right there. He didn't need to, but he was doing it. So, but then sometimes people ask this question, once again, this is somebody asked me this question that, but Krishna does Ras Leela. How is that exemplary? Okay. There are different contexts here. When Krishna is king in Dwarka, he acts in an exemplary way. However, in Vrindavan, Krishna is not in a leadership position. He's just a child. Well, but that does not mean that his activities in Vrindavan are not exemplary. Krishna demonstrates and he also transcends morality. Right? In the 10th canto, Parikshit Maharaj also asked this similar question, that how can he dance with the wives of others? So the purpose of moral principles, morality, is to guard us from lower selfish desires, which can eventually lead us to hurt others. So these are for our moral protection. But Krishna does not need that. Right? He's not bound by any lower desires. He's acting for the well-being of human race. So Ras Leela is demonstrating topmost spirituality. It is demonstrating that for sake of love, even morality is sacrificed. Sarv dharman parityaja. That's what Krishna says in the 66th word of the 18th chapter. So when one does in complete surrender, he goes even beyond morality. That is what we should focus on when we are hearing the last Ras Leela. So just to keep that in mind, that some activities of Krishna will blatantly look exemplary, but some might not. But we have to understand the meaning behind them. Understand that. Actually, in the last verse of the chapter about Ras Leela in the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Sukadev Goswami says that Vikriditam Vrajavadubhir idham cha Vishnu. Shraddhanyito Anushrad. I'm messing up the verse. But what he says is that you can overcome lust by reading the chapter about Ras Leela. So it's about our consciousness, how we see Krishna's pastimes, not to look at them as immoral. They're actually transmoral. Let me see, what does Prabhupada say? Okay, so I'll pause here, see if anybody has any comments, thoughts, anything on your mind. So that I'm just going to stop here. I'm not going to start the next section. Anything? Anyone?
I do. So when we do our duty, but that's not according to Varnas, no,
According to?
our ashram. So over 50, you are deeply bound in material world, making money, while you're supposed to be doing what was the other Varna? After Grihastha.
So you're saying if when we don't do duties according to our ashram, is that what you're asking?
Yes. So according to ashram, our duty is supposed to be preparing for retirement, preparing for detachment. But over 70s, you're still not retiring. You still have to work, So the duty for the family makes sense, but then spiritual duty, you're very behind. So I think we discussed this before, but I just need a little reminder.
I didn't understand your question. So you're saying that why is it that people are still working?
No. So we have this this harmony with our age and the ashram not matching up. So when we have to keep up with our material duty to serve family members, but you're not keeping up with your spiritual duty to prepare to leave your body, detach, it just how do you explain that, how we getting aged, to harmonize this two stage, while in terms of doing duty?
Let me see if I understood what
I kind of like, I'm much older in age, and my child is young, and I'm like deeply involved with the work and try to catch up with the spiritual education and work. And I'm constantly juggling. And in a way, I am telling myself that, oh, I am doing my duty. I'm spiritualized everything that I can from what I have, my time, my energy, my effort, doing everything I can. But that doesn't still give me the, full satisfaction.
Okay. So one thing to keep in mind is that the ashramas that we have, brahmacharya, grihastha, vanprastha, sannyas, they are guiding principles. They are not mechanical laws. Okay. Prabhupada repeatedly emphasized purpose over the ashram that you are in. Don't try to be a lot about externals, be more about the substance. Okay. The goal of ashram is detachment and remembrance of Krishna. It's not a calendar-based retirement plan. Okay. I know many devotees, senior devotees, who are still married. They are not sannyasis, but they live their life like sannyasis. They are not having, family responsibilities, or, they're living full time like a sannyasi. So the word sannyas means somebody who knows the right place for everything. That's sannyas. So sam means complete, anayas means to put it in the right place. So that's what the word sannyas means. So if a grahastha ashram person is living his life 24/7 in Krishna consciousness, he is equal to a sannyasi. Okay? So when you say a grahastha ashram, okay, 50 years we have to do. No, it has to be according to time, place, and circumstance. For example, Prabhupada really wanted to establish the vanprastha, right? Not the vanprastha, sorry, these ashrams, right? So he wanted to establish all this, the varanas and the ashrams, right? He wanted to establish that. if you see in today's environment, no, not varnashrama. What am I thinking? Let's know this. I think it's varnashrama. Yes, right. Varnashrama system. So, for example, when you go to let's say New Vrindavan, or you go to Gita Nagari or some of these places. So in today's world, the varnashrama system might not mean that completely that, okay, 50 years, you're off, you have no more family life, you become a vanprastha, you go in the forest. And 70, you leave your family members, you become a sannyasi. No, actually, the varnashrama system in the modern way, in the modern world, could be living in a more socially, spiritually harmonic environment. For example, like, the farm communities that we have. So, in a broader sense, when you go from a grahastha ashram to a vanprastha, the goal is to reduce your sense gratification, reduce accumulation, increase hearing and chanting. If you could do that while you're in your grahastha ashram, you are perfectly situated in that ashram. You can live in a vanprastha consciousness without physically leaving home, right? So everything can be dovetailed in Krishna's service according to one's capacity. So, as a grasta, you may continue to work, you may continue living at home, may continue caring for dependents. However, you can live in the right varnashrama mode by living simply, by giving generously, reducing personal enjoyment, increasing service and outreach. You can mentor young devotees. If you have children at home, you can mentor them. You can prioritize sadhana over a lifestyle upgrade. This is a very functional ashrama system to live in. So what I want to stress on, it's not a law. It's more of a consciousness that defines each of those ashramas, right? But if somebody starts thinking, oh, I'm in Grahastha ashram, Prabhupada has told, okay, Grahastha ashram, you can have some sense gratification, so I'll stay in Grahastha ashram. No, that is not justified. That is actually avoidance of responsibility. It's not harmonization.
Mhm.
So ashrama, reduce attachment, increase dependence on Krishna. If the form changes but the purpose is fulfilled, it is harmony. It's not a compromise. You might continue to live in a grahastha ashram, but if you're fulfilling the purpose, then it's harmony. Right? So just keep, that's something. I'm not sure if I hit. I'm not sure if I hit
Oh,
your.
it's very nice. Yeah, thank you so much.
And Prabhupada himself, I'm not. If you might already know this. Prabhupada was a grahastha ashram until 54. Right?
Mhm.
He entered Vanprasth very gradually. Actually, in Bhagavatam, Vanprastha is divided into four ways. First thing is that the person lives in another house, but in the same locality. His family comes and gives him food. So I'm not going to go into detail, but that's also divided into further part. So he didn't want to take sannyas. Prabhupada's guru came in his dreams 2 times that Abhaycharan, get up, take sannyas. He was not ready to take a sannyas, right? So he followed Krishna's arrangement. He was not mechanical, age-based transitions, right? Actually, as a matter of fact, even when he was Vanprastha, he was taking care of his children. Actually, when he came to United States, one of his sons came to see him off at the dock. So harmonization by teaching, progressive detachment, not forced renunciation. Conscious transition, not a timeline guidance, not rigid timelines, right? So there has to be responsibility and renunciation together. That's the real Varnashrama spirit. Okay, so anybody else, any thoughts, comments, or
I had one question. Can you hear me? Otherwise, I'll type.
I can hear you clearly now. Please go ahead.
Okay. So when we were talking about, I had question about setting example. So I wanted to talk about offering milk. Usually, like when we buy milk from commercial places, it basically involves animal cruelty. So we still like buy that milk and offer it to the deities in the temple, in the house. So isn't that contradictory? And how can we say that we are setting example when we are actually involved in the cruelty?
When we offer milk, first thing is you can buy milks that are not cruel for the,
Yeah.
that obviously we have that option. That option always remains for us. So you can find a source that provides milk without animal cruelty. It's easy. Not easy. I'm not saying it's easy. For me, probably it's easy because Gita Nagari is just a couple of hours away from here in Maryland. But if there is something of that sort available, yes, go do that. However, if in a worst case scenario, nothing is available, we do with the best we have. Prabhupada would say, make the best use of the bad bargain you have got. That was a statement Prabhupada would make quite often. So we make the best bargain of whatever we have. Make the best use of it. Krishna is looking for the intention. He's not looking for how perfect you are in your DT service, in your house. He's more looking for the intention behind it. If you have an opportunity to buy milk that is cruelty free, but still you don't buy that because it's a couple of dollars costlier, now that's not the right intention. So it's the intention that's behind that's more important. And when you do it in that way, then when others see you, they understand that bhakti is not about rules and regulations. Bhakti is more about having that right consciousness. And more importantly, when you have taken it, giving it to others in the right consciousness. Once when Prabhupada was in India, he was at this very rich person's house, he and many of his disciples. Very amazing devotee, that person whose house Prabhupada was staying at. But they cooked something for Prabhupada with onion in it. One of Prabhupada's disciples came running to him. Prabhupada, this food has onion, don't eat it. Prabhupada gently told him, go ahead and eat your food. Prabhupada wanted his disciples to go and preach in Russia. Prabhupada disciples, they would say, Prabhupada, we're not going to go there. There is no food there. It's like bitter cold throughout the year. No food, only things are meat. Prabhupada said, eat meat, but preach Krishna consciousness. I'm not asking you all to do that. It's only a pure devotee who can arrange that. I'm just giving you some examples where how Prabhupada would accordingly change the details. And that eventually boils down to having the right intention. Did that make sense for you?
Yeah. Can we also say that when we offer like the milk which is not cruelty free, it gives some credit to the cow as well?
Sorry, I didn't get you. So if it's not cruelty free, you're giving credit to the cow? What do you mean by that?
I mean, if we offer the milk, that cow's milk to the deity, then does that cow's soul, like, does it get liberated if we offer it?
Oh, I'm not sure if I've not
Okay.
read any of that
Okay.
sort, but yeah, it could be. Yes, it could be. So, but yeah, just keep in mind that offering is an expression of love to Krishna,
Mm-hmm.
an acknowledgement that food is coming from him.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then, yes, offering does not mean that we endorse cruelty, that we are
Mm-hmm.
ignoring cow suffering, right? We are just being complacent. We are not doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Srila Prabhupada wanted cow protection, right? He didn't want blind dairy consumption. Right?
Mm-hmm.
That is why Prabhupada would but then ISKCON and Prabhupada taught us progress, not paralysis. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Prabhupada supported, that, oh yeah, we should have our own cow programs, reduce dairy consumption if alternatives exist, source milk responsibly where possible. So yes, so yeah, if you have opportunities, alternatives, it's good, right? But then Krishna is looking for bhava, right? Krishna says that in what's that, 926? Patram pushpam talam phalam toyam yo me bhaktya prachati. Bhaktya, with coming with devotion. Yo me bhaktya tadaham bhakti upartam ashnami priyatatmana. So yes, milk is not mandatory. It's the devotion that's mandatory behind it. Right? The problem is not that, okay, oh, I'm not going to offer milk to Krishna because it's coming. No. It should be have that concept of that power also should be there.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. There's nothing. I'll wrap up and I'll see you next week. Please continue to read purports. It's very important. If you don't read Prabhupada's books, we all will go insane. I assure you that.
Prabhuji, I just have a quick question. I won't
Yes,
take much
please.
time. Prabhuji, you mentioned that we should move towards Krishna conscious, not spiritual. So, do you mean to say that, like Karma Kandi, when they do spiritual things, like they want something in exchange?
Mm.
Do you mean that?
Well, what I was meaning for when I said that part, I was saying that, well, yes, obviously, yes, the Karma Kandis, they are thinking about themselves. But what I was also stressing it at, don't get comfortable in spiritual life, right? Comfortable means, what I meant by comfortable in my mind, what I was thinking about is, I do my 16 rounds, I offer my bhoga, that's it. I'm doing my bhakti. And I become comfortable. There are so many people who become comfortable in that life. But Prabhupada Krishna wants us to be comfortable in Krishna consciousness. He wants us to be dependent on Krishna. The more we become dependent on Krishna, that's something that brings us very close to Krishna. If we continue to do okay, yes, we are doing our chanting, we are in a mode of goodness. Krishna says that, when you're in a mode of goodness, the highest you will go to is heaven. And then you'll come back again. So what I meant was coming out of the comfort zone to become Krishna conscious. That's what I meant.
So, being in the spiritual, like you said, the same thing, like, being Krishna conscious. So, how it's comfortable? It's not comfortable. It's not, we are not being in the comfort zone when we're in the Krishna conscious. Waking up early, doing 16 rounds, reading all Prabhupada books. So, how come it's comfort? It's not comfort, Prabhuji.
Comfort, by what I mean by comfort is when you are happy in doing that part. Okay, I wake up early, I do my rounds, I read Prabhupada's books, that's it. That's comfort just doesn't mean that I get to sleep longer. But comfort can also mean that I'm okay, I wake up early, that's good for me. No, that's when that mindset comes in that, okay, I am okay with this part that I'm doing, waking up early and doing my chanting. And obviously that might also be out of your comfort zone, so that's good. But at some points, and I notice there's many a times I can wake up early. I wake up early, but then that doesn't mean necessarily that I'm doing good rounds. It doesn't mean necessarily that I'm going out of my comfort zone. And every day whenever I have to go out for book distribution, it's very hard for me to pick myself up and go out because it's pushing me out of my comfort zone. But
It's like
waking up
challenging
early and doing my
ourselves.
chanting is my comfort zone in one sense. That's the way I was explaining.
So, we can say that like challenging ourselves, like every day.
Challenging ourselves, yes. And not just ourselves. See, when Krishna sends problems to our life, how do we approach them? That will make us Krishna conscious. Am I just going to sit in a corner, cry, and blame others and look at my phone and reels? Is that the way I'm going to respond to the problems when they come? Or I see everything as Krishna's mercy, and I see why is Krishna is giving it to me, so he must have a bigger plan, and I just go through it. So when we depend on Krishna, then we become mature in bhakti. Right? So that's what happens. But if I'm just sitting where I am, yes, I'm waking up early, doing my rounds, reading Prabhupada's book, that can also be out of your comfort zone. But then you can also look at yourself and judge that am I progressing in bhakti? Is it taking me to the next level? Do I really want to go to the next level? So
Okay.
some of those thoughts to keep in mind.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Okay, so we are at 8:33. We'll wrap up. I'll see you all next week. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu.
Happy
Thank you, Prabhuji.
everyone.
Happy